Champagne is the drink we always associate with a grand occasion. Real champagne is made from the grapes grown in a small region of northern France where the weather isn't all that good and the soil is pretty poor. But the chalk under the soil has produced distinctive tasting grapes for over 2,000 years. The champagne-making process is rigorously controlled by the French government to protect the reputation. They even lay down how much grape juice is allowed to be extracted from any given quantity of grapes. Fermenting the pressed grapes produces different wines from different vineyards, which are then blended by each champagne house to create their own distinctive flavour. And then it's bottled with extra sugar and yeast, so it'll ferment for a second time and become bubbly. The bottles are stored in underground cellars originally dug by the Romans for the same purpose. After 3 years, the sediment has separated out, so the bottles are now stored neck down and turned regularly to encourage the sediment to slide to the neck. The final process is to freeze the neck of the bottle and take the top off, so the ice plug with the sediment in it shoots out. The champagne that is lost is replaced with old wine and with sugar, and it's this addition that determines the final taste of the particular champagne and whether it will be sweet or demi-sec, dry or extra dry. The bottles are stored for a few months in a cool place, and then it's ready to drink. Well, we have various sorts of champagne here in the studio, as well as sparkling wines of every description. And to see what's the best value and some idea of how we might celebrate well but a bit more cheaply, here's our wine expert, Jilly Goolden. Jill, is that complicated process we saw for making champagne really necessary?
It is actually. It's as necessary as the soil type, the grape variety, the climate. All these things go to make champagne. Ever since it was discovered in the 17th century by a dear old monk, Dom Perignon, champagne's probably been the most luxurious drink in the world, I suppose. He discovered by having strong bottles with a good cork, you could trap the natural CO2, which is given off during fermentation, and have it in solution in the wine. And he said, I think I'm drinking the stars, and now we all drink the stars.
Lovely quote.
The most expensive wine we have here, or one of the most expensive, is called Dom Perignon, in fact, and it costs about £20 a bottle. A vintage wine made only from the grapes harvested in 1 year. And they have the best of everything. And also, they age the wine at their own expense. This bottle is about 7 years old, and so they've got no cash flow all that time, which makes it very expensive. Next down the expense, you have the Grand Marques, which is the names that you're familiar with, the Tétingers, Paul Rogers, that sort of thing. And they're expensive too, because no one really wants to buy something that's prestigious and cheap. And they have their own house style, and people tend to choose one they particularly like.
Would you care to put a price on those?
These are about £8 to £12. Supermarkets now have their own champagnes, very respectable champagnes, branded with a supermarket name. And they, like everything in a supermarket, do happen to be a bit cheaper. But not as cheap as this champagne, I found, which is £6.59. Very respectable, and the cheapest champagne I've managed to sleuth out.
What about these bottles here, which are labelled Méthode Champenoise? What does that exactly mean?
Well, this is the same method, all that twiddling and twirling that we saw, but it is made in a different area. The Saumur district in the Loire is very famous for its sparkling wines, and they make some good ones. Here, a very good buy, Méthode Champenoise, which means it's made in this bottle twiddling fashion, at £3.25. And Blanquette de Limoux, which comes from the south of France, is again another prestigious non-champagne sparkler. They also claim that they invented sparkling wine, but it's a bit of a fight between them, I think. These ones here come from Spain, where they've tried to give their sparkling wines some sort of prestige by calling them cava. And cava means méthode champenoise, again, except that they have automated the process a bit. It's slightly unglamorous. They load up the bottles in a kind of, it's called a girasol, which is a sunflower, if you like, and they then heave it around with a forklift truck, and they all shake up a bit, and it goes down, I think.
Does that compare well with French champagne?
It is different. I don't think that people should talk about being like champagne or not like champagne. It's a very nice sparkling wine. I don't think that you could possibly confuse the two. And this is about £4 a bottle. And it's very respectable, and you should buy it as a sort of £4 a bottle cava wine. This here is from California, and it says on the label, fermented in the bottle. That is in fact true, but after fermenting it in the bottle, instead of all the remouage business, they tip it back into a tank, filter it, and put it back in the bottle. So it's a sort of a bit of a cheat, really. £3.50 for that, and I think slightly clumsy, if you understand what I mean, a bit of a heavier wine, really. But the tank actually plays a very large part in making of sparkling wines. These wines here are all made entirely in a tank. They aren't fermented in the bottle for the second time, so it cuts down on all the labour and should cut down on the price. These people are trying to get a bit posh about it and have propellers in their tanks and things to try and make the wine a bit more mature and age it a bit more, and they're about £4.
But it doesn't really affect the taste, you don't think, to that extent?
It affects the bubbles quite considerably. They're much more clumsy, get up your nose a bit actually, and don't last so long in the glass. And it does, if you're a connoisseur, affect the taste, but not otherwise.
What about these here? Asti Spumanti.
Asti Spumanti. Poor old Asti has a terribly unfortunate name because people think it's rather a down-market drink. Not at all. It's extremely well made. It just happens to be a bit sweet, which is unfashionable at the moment. I think it's very refreshing, very fresh, and perfect with strawberries and cream. The one point here is that if you have Asti on the label, you're going to be paying a bit more because it has more restrictions than if you just have Spumanti.
Right at the end of the line, we've got the
Those
real
two.
cheapos that
They
Simon's
are
talking
real
about.
cheapos. They're about £1.99 a bottle, and they get the bubbles put in with a bicycle pump, literally. They're carbonated, and they're not great wines to begin with, but they are very cheap. I've actually got some glasses, actually, which I've poured out, and you'll see that the bicycle pump or carbonated wine will have the shortest lived bubbles. The tank fermented wine will have rather big and effervescent bubbles which don't have a long life, and the champagne will have little tiny strings of bubbles which go on for a very long time, and that's what you're paying for.
Jill Goolden, thank you very much.
And at that point, I think we'll bring the audience into it. We've given them a selection of 3 glasses, one each. One is a Krug 76 vintage champagne. The second is a Méthode Champenoise. And the third is a tank-fermented sparkling white wine.
Yeah.
First of all, can you tell me, anyone who thinks they've been drinking the cheap white wine, busy white wine, would you put your hands up, please? Let's see, only 1, 2, 3, 4, very few, hands down. Let me go to the gentleman in the dark glasses at the back row. Did you like what you were drinking?
Yes, I did, actually, yeah.
Did you think it was champagne?
No, I put my hand up when you asked the first question.
Yes, exactly. So you thought that it was sparkling white wine?
Yeah, I think that's partly because the bubbles seem to disappear rather quickly, and from what your expert's been saying, I thought I should say that.
Would you give that to your guests at a dinner party?
Yes, I would. I thought it was okay.
Well, you show tremendous perspicacity because you were, in fact, drinking sparkling white wine. Let me come to the front and ask that lady in the pink dress, who still has quite a lot left, what did you think you were drinking?
I thought I was possibly drinking sparkling white wine.
Did you like the taste of it?
I was a bit disappointed because I thought it smelt wonderful and I was looking forward to it, and I found it a bit sort of metallic.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you normally drink champagne?
When I can, yes.
Do you like champagne?
I love it, yes.
And would you serve that to your guests at a dinner party?
Not at a dinner party. If I was giving a very large party, if I could afford it, and they, you know, just wanted to have plenty of booze, I'd give them this, I
That's
think.
fascinating. You, I must tell you, were drinking Krug 76 vintage champagne.
No.
Yes, at about 20 to 26 pounds a bottle. Which is fascinating. And now let's just reveal the whole thing, which is that the front row were all drinking Krug 76, so be grateful for quite expensive Mercies. On the second row, you were drinking Méthode Champenoise, and on the third row, and there's nothing personal in this, you were all drinking rather cheap, fizzy wine. But what was fascinating about it, I think, was the fact that none of you really cared. You all enjoyed it in some way, shape or form. Thank you very much.